This complete gardening course is divided into multiple parts with multiple sections within each part, starting from basic information to expert gardening hacks and tricks. You can skip to any section by clicking on the timestamps given in the description below. I guarantee that you will become an expert gardener if you watch this entire course at least once till the end. Please follow this playlist titled Complete Gardening Course and watch all parts like Part 1, Part 2, Part 3 and so on. Let's begin.
Seeds are magic to gardens. Tuck them in the soil, add a little water and you're on the way to a beautiful bloom or a tasty harvest. Whether you are a beginner or an expert gardener, you'll certainly improve your success by avoiding these common errors that will be discussed shortly. Germinating seeds is in fact a simple process, but when seeds do not sprout, you feel disheartened and in fact some lose their interest in gardening. But you should always take your time to evaluate or diagnose the problem. Here are 7 fatal mistakes or answers to seed germination problems. Mistake number 1. You are using non-viable or old seeds. If your seeds haven't sprouted within the appropriate number of days, then most likely or the most common reason could be the seeds are not viable. Always check the expiry date or the best before date on the seed packet, and also purchase seeds from reliable sources. This seed viability issue can even be due to improper storage of seeds, like in moisture, which can cause them to rot or mold. Here are 2 simple hacks to test whether your seed is viable. The first method is simply pour the seeds in a container of water, and if the seeds are floating, they are not viable. Just discard them and choose only those sunk to the bottom. Then secondly, checking seed viability using a wet toilet paper method. Pour some seeds on a wet toilet paper and keep it in a Ziploc bag for about 24 to 48 hours and look for sprouting to check their viability. Another important point to remember is the seed pod maturity, especially if you're growing seeds from your fruits or vegetables. A fruit or vegetable develops from a flower after pollination and fertilization process and is nothing but a seed pod. Then second mistake is wrong planting technique. Planting your seeds too deep can cause problems with sprouting. So what is the ideal depth for sowing seeds? The rule of thumb is to plant seeds at a depth equal to 2 times or max 3 times their width or the thickness. It's better to plant seeds too shallow than too deep. You should also avoid pressing down heavily on the top of your seeds after you plant them. Then mistake number 3. Bad seed starting potting mix or the soil. This is very important factor for success rate. Starting seeds in garden soil alone is not recommended because this soil is too compacted and the seeds cannot sprout. Also, if it contains large pieces of stones, wood and stuff like that, this can prevent seeds from sprouting freely. And moreover, this soil is full of harmful pathogens that can affect the seed germination rate and also the health of the seedling. Many gardeners suggest baking this soil in oven at 180 degrees centigrade for 30 minutes to kill most weeds and pathogens. But the problem is this will also kill the beneficial microorganisms like mycorrhizae and pseudomonas from the soil. So it's always better to prepare your own seed starting mix without using garden soil. One such recipe you can follow is coco peat or peat moss 70% plus compost like decomposed cow dung or vermicompost 30%. This is more than sufficient and the best seed starting mix. You can optionally add stuff like perlite and even fine grade vermiculite into this mixture. Alternately, you can also use seed starting coco peat pellets, which can be directly transplanted into the soil when the seedlings are ready for transplant. Then mistake number 4. Wrong temperature and wrong season. This is another common mistake most of us commit. Planting by the season depending on the zone you live in is really important because the temperature is very important factor for seed germination. Temperatures that are too high or too low can cause problems germinating seeds. So try to follow the planting calendar of the zone you live in. Then mistake number 5. Improper watering. Seed germination is highly dependent on watering and moisture. If it's too dry, they fail to sprout, and if it's too wet, they will rot in the dirt. Seeds need to be moderately moist to sprout, and this is in fact difficult to assess. Also, very young seedlings are even more tender and can die due to improper watering. The best trick to water these is using a bottom tray method. Just keep the bottom tray filled with water and do not water from top. If the potting medium is dry, it starts to absorb water through the drainage holes, and this process goes on and is completely a safe method of watering seeds and tender seedlings. Then on number 6, dirty or unsterile containers or seed trays. For a better success rate in seed germination, it's always wise to use a fresh new container or thoroughly clean the old containers before adding the potting mix. Fungal and mold infections are the most common infections from dirty containers. If infection occurs, you will notice a fuzzy growth at the top of the planting medium. You may also see that a seed sprouts but then rots at its base and then falls over. This is called damping off and is caused by a fungal infection in your soil. To clean your containers, you can use hydrogen peroxide or even use your kitchen baking soda, like about 1 tablespoon per liter of water, and then clean the containers with this solution. Or simply clean it with soap and water or even a diluted bleaching powder. Then on number 7, the role of sunlight. Do seeds require sunlight to germinate? For most of the seeds, sunlight is not required for sprouting the seeds. Dark, damp and warm conditions are the best for sprouting stage of germination. But once the seeds germinate and then 2 tiny leaves are out, they need sunlight. You must follow the hardening off method, which means a gradual exposure to sunlight, like 1 hour for the first day, 2 hours for the second, 3 hours for the third day, and so on, to provide full sun exposure.
To transplant your seedlings, use a spoon. Dig out as much soil with it, including the roots of the plant, and hold the leaves of the plant and not the stem to pull out, because this can squeeze and damage the water and food conducting tubes, that's xylem and phloem, and the plant may die. Use sandpaper to scrape the hard seed cover of certain seeds like apple, chiku, and those with hard seed cover for faster seed germination. Make your own seedling watering can using a plastic bottle. You can make this in 2 ways. First, by popping out a nozzle by heating the cap. This really works great to water your succulents, because spilling water directly on succulents can be dangerous to the plants and result in rot. Another way is to make a simple bottle shower by making multiple tiny holes in the cap and offer this shower effect to your small plants. Mark your garden gloves with inches or centimeters to evenly plant your seeds or seedlings. And similarly, if your garden is big, you can use a long stick and mark the measurements for the same purpose, like if you're planting in a raised bed garden or large space gardening. How to know if my seeds are healthy or unhealthy? First thing you should check before purchase is the packaging date and the best before date. Then pour your seeds in your hand and closely examine them. And the first look itself will tell you which seeds are healthy looking and which need to be discarded. You can test your seeds or even start some seedlings using toilet paper method. Just sprinkle the seeds on 1 layer of toilet paper and just put another layer on the top of this and make it moist by spraying water. Place this either in a Ziploc bag or any container, keep it in a warm place and check it after 24 to 48 hours for sprouts. Just cut out a plastic bottle and use it as seedling or small plant protector against wind, blowing them away, or from animals and birds. Place this as shown here to protect your seedlings. The same can be used as funnel to transfer your seeds or potting mix into bags or containers. You can also use old forks from your kitchen and bury them around seedlings to protect them from animals. It's a good habit to always label your plants and your planted seeds. It can really create confusion if you do not label them. You can make your own labels with pop sticks, candy sticks, plastic bottle strips, larger pebbles, window blind curtain strips, and so on. You can pick small seeds for sowing with a stick or toothpick dipped in water. You can do perfect seed spacing for tiny seeds, like spreading them apart in a row on toilet paper for better visibility and even spacing and sowing. You can even make seed tapes either in a row or a square or round seed board, especially for carrot seeds, for even spacing and better growth and ease of harvesting. Before planting seeds, soak them in lukewarm water for 24 hours, especially for certain seeds like beans, peas, okra, and others. Another hack for seed soaking is using Epsom salt solution for soaking, like 1 teaspoon of Epsom salt in 100 ml of water. This results in faster germination and healthy seedlings. You can also spray Epsom salt solution on your seeds and seedlings for healthy outcome. Egg trays can be used as seed germination trays, either the cardboard ones, or if you're using plastic egg storage container, you need to make some drainage holes. You can also use eggshells to plant seeds and directly transplant them into soil. Similarly, you can make your own biodegradable seed starting cups using used tissue paper rolled cardboard. These can be directly transferred into the soil along with the seedling. You can also make seed pods by rolling newspaper, and even this is biodegradable, and similarly you can directly transplant this with the pot into the soil or into a larger container. You can use small containers like those from your kitchen and make mini greenhouses and place your seeds inside them for faster germination. Once baby seedlings come out of the seeds, gradually introduce them to sunlight once a pair of leaves have come out, like 1 hour a day for 3 days, 2 hours for the next few days, and then gradually to full sunlight. This process is called hardening off. Using a seedling heat mat or a heat source from a high watt bulb will also help you create a spring-like atmosphere for your seeds to germinate faster.
Plants reproduce using eggs, that's ova, and sperms, just like humans and animals. Male plants release pollen grains which fertilize the ovaries. The fertilized ovaries then develop into seeds, which are like the zygote and the embryo, which are either dispersed naturally, either by the winds or animals, or if planted into the soil by humans, grow into new plants. This concept of seed formation is important to learn how to collect your own seeds from your garden or for plant propagation. You must also know few more concepts and terms of botany in gardening. The flower. The flower is the reproductive unit of many plants. To understand the reproductive organs of a plant, the parts of the flower should be known, which includes petals, sepals, the carpels, and the stamens. The external parts of the flower are the petals and sepals. Plants or flowers can be unisexual or bisexual, also called as hermaphrodites, similar to certain genders in humans. Bisexual, also called perfect flowers, meaning that flowers have both male and female parts in the same flower. And unisexual, also called imperfect flowers, meaning they have only one organs, either male or female. Most flowers are bisexual, and we shall study the anatomy of a flower and different parts of a flower in this illustrated diagram. What parts are the male reproductive organs? Stamens are the male reproductive parts of the flower. A stamen consists of an anther, also called as pollen boxes, which produces pollen, and the filament. The pollen consists of the male reproductive cells, and these fertilize ovules. What parts are the female reproductive organs? The pistil is the collective term for the carpel. Each carpel or the female part includes a stigma, which receives the pollen during fertilization, and a style, a tube on top of the ovary, and an ovary, where the ovules are produced. And the ovules, the female reproductive cells or the eggs. So that was the illustration of the female parts of the flower. Pollination and fertilization. Pollination is a process by which pollen grains are transferred to female reproductive organs of a plant, thereby enabling fertilization to take place. This can be compared to copulation in animals, and fertilization is the same terms used for formation of zygote in animals and humans. Pollination can be either natural or artificially done by humans. In case of bisexual or perfect flowers, pollination happens within the same plant, and then seeds are formed, and this is called self-pollination. If this happens from one plant to a different plant, it's called cross-pollination. Well, we'll not go into the depths of these. The point you must note is you must not prevent or drive away or even kill the natural pollinators or insects like honeybees and butterflies, which are very useful agents in gardening and plant reproduction. These insects are called pollen vectors. These insects like honeybees and butterflies fly from flower to flower, collecting the sweet nectar. As they visit the flowers, they spread pollen around, depositing it on some stigmas. After male's pollen grains have landed on the stigma during fertilization, pollen tubes develop into the style, burrowing down to the ovary where the sperm fertilizes an ovum, that's an egg cell, in the ovule. After fertilization, the ovule develops into a seed in the ovary. Also, artificial pollination is an interesting topic in gardening. Here, we humans intervene with the natural pollination process. We take out the pollen grains or plant sperms from one flower and transfer it to another, allowing the pollen to fertilize the ovaries and create seeds that will develop into fruits and then new plants. We shall not go into the details of these at present, and our main purpose of this video is, especially for newbie gardeners, is to clear the concept of how plants reproduce and how seeds are formed in plants, and this is called sexual propagation. Asexual propagation is another topic. Most of us grow plants from cuttings, and this is the best example of asexual propagation.
We learn the types of seeds, that is hybrid seeds, which can be F1, F2 or F3, then heirloom seeds,
and what are open pollinated seeds, and importance of knowing these types in gardening, especially for those who think of saving their plant seeds for sowing in the next season. Let's begin with hybrid seeds. Let us first know what this letter F stands for. The letter F represents filia. It's a Latin word meaning daughter. So the hybrid seeds are of three types, F1, F2 and F3. These are actually produced by crossbreeding of two stable plants with different genetics, and the pollen from male are used to fertilize the female.
So now let's understand F1, F2, F3 by drawing a family tree. Imagine plants as people. So the first generation daughters or the seeds are simply F1, and F2 are grandchildren, and F3 are great grandchildren.
That means F2 are produced from F1 and F3 are produced from F2. This is so simple, but why are these numbers so important in choosing the seeds when you're visiting a garden store or even purchasing online? Well, you must know what you're purchasing, like whether you're purchasing children, grandchildren or great-grandchildren. So what actually happens at some point of time with these generations and what to expect in such plants? We'll look into this now. Now regarding F1 hybrid seeds or the first generation hybrid seeds, just remember, if you purchase a packet of F1 seeds, you should exactly get the same qualities of the parents like flowering, growth potency and even disease resistance. And it should produce the picture perfect of the flowers or fruits that's printed on the seed packet. If you can get F1 seeds, they are the best. But true F1 seeds are generally expensive. So always purchase them from a trusted seed company. Now coming to F2 hybrid seeds, that is the second generation seeds. When F1 plants produce flowers and when they self-pollinate or even hand-pollinated, then F2 seeds are produced. They are sometimes known as S2, that is where S stands for self. So how this is important to us? F2 generation plants have a lot of genetic variations and often are less vigorous and may not always produce the original flowers or fruits as displayed in the seed packets. But many F2 seeds from good companies can also produce identical flowers, fruits or even vegetables similar to parents. So F2 seeds are popular nowadays because they are very inexpensive and have some decent disease resistance as well. Some gardeners might think of saving seeds from plants grown with F2 seeds, that is F3 seeds. F3 seeds do not have that potency and the qualities of F2. So the best seeds are F2 and F1. Now let's learn two more terms used in gardening, that is open pollinated and heirloom seeds. Open pollinated plant cultivars are pollinated by natural pollinators like the insects, birds, wind or any natural mechanisms, and even if they're pollinated by hand. Whereas the heirloom seeds are actually having a history of being passed down within the family for many generations, like something similar to generational sharing of heirloom jewelry or furniture and things like that. Some seed companies even sell very old heirloom seeds like the cultivars that can be more than 50 years or even 100 years old. One more important point here to remember is people think hybrid seeds are some synthetic modern seeds produced by genetic modification. These genetically modified seeds or crops are actually different, and these are created by using the advanced genetic modification technology in agriculture.
The vegetable growing calendar. We all know the importance of planting right seeds in the right season for best results. Planting in the wrong season can result in poor seed germination, stunted plant growth, diseased plants, and a very bad harvest. Some vegetables and fruits grow only in certain temperatures, humidity, and soil pH levels. So it's critical to know which season is compatible to grow a particular plant. But this growing calendar or the seasons are not constant, and this varies throughout the world and varies from zone to zone. Hence, in this episode, we learn how to make your own vegetable planting calendar and start vegetable planting or seed sowing based on the soil temperature. Do not worry, it is not at all complicated, but this is actually very important. On number 1, what is soil temperature? Soil temperature is simply the measurement of the warmth in the soil. Nighttime and daytime soil temperatures are both equally important. It is measured in degrees Fahrenheit or degrees centigrade or Celsius, depending on where you live. On number 2, what gadgets do you need to measure soil temperature? Obviously, you need a thermometer to measure temperature. Soil thermometers are not expensive. There are many types of soil thermometers available. You can use any thermometer with a long probe to measure the soil temperature, including this type of food or the milk thermometer.
This is really cheap and available online. You can check a link to buy it online from description below. You can also use this type of all-in-one gadget which measures soil pH, moisture and temperature. On number 3, how to measure soil temperature. For seed starting, you insert the probe 1 to 2 inches deep to check the readings, whereas for transplants or for other plants, you need to insert the probe 2 to 4 inches deep or even more and then keep it in the soil for about 2 to 3 minutes to get the right reading. You can also repeat multiple times and take an average of all the readings. One simple tip here is, do not press your thermometer harder to make it into the soil, especially if the soil is harder. You can use a screwdriver to make a hole into the soil and then insert the thermometer. On number 4, what time of the day should I measure? Soil temperature is best taken in the early morning when the soil is coolest and not yet warmed under the day's sun. On number 5, why not air temperature? This is because the relationship between soil temperature and air temperature is not fixed and varies in different seasons. Like in early spring season, the soil temperature is lower than the air temperature, and then in summer it's higher than the air temperature. If you know this concept, then you can use your zone air temperature and roughly use the weather readings from your smartphone and use it as a baseline for planting your crops. On number 6, what factors affect soil temperature? The moisture content in the soil is the most important factor that affects soil temperature. Moist soils heat up slowly. Hence, when you measure soil temperature, it's better to insert the thermometer at least after 12 hours of watering the soil. Another factor which is actually used in many zones with unfavorable temperatures is the use of greenhouses or polyhouses to maintain temperatures ideal for seed germination and plant growth. On number 7, what is workable soil test? Before the soil thermometers were used in farming, the common method of determining when to plant was soil workability. This is in fact an old-fashioned method to roughly know when to plant. The soil is workable and ready for seed sowing or planting if it passes the workable soil test. Here is the test. Squeeze a handful of soil in the palm of your hand, and when you open your hand, if the soil remains wet or very moist clump, it is not workable. Let the soil dry. If the soil crumbles from your hand with a touch, it is workable. On number 8, what is ideal soil temperature for most plants? Each vegetable has a specific ideal temperature that's favorable for seed germination and best results. Ideal soil temperature for planting should be 10 degrees above the ideal minimum and 10 degrees below the maximum for that vegetable. We'll show you the temperature chart for various vegetables at the end of this episode. On number 9, why soil temperature is important? The right soil temperature triggers not only seed germination but is an important factor in soil chemistry as well. Soil chemistry includes the release and absorption of minerals and nutrients in soil by the roots, and this is so vital for plant resistance against pests and then proper plant growth and maturation till the harvest. And now, let's build our own seed sowing or vegetable planting calendar depending on the soil temperatures. You can classify this calendar in many ways. Like a much broader way is to put them into 2 categories, like warm crops or cool crops or cold crops. One more method is to divide them into seasons or even months from Jan to December, or like spring vegetable planting, summer vegetables, rainy season vegetables, winter season vegetables, and stuff like that. If you want your very own perfect calendar for all these seasons, you might have to measure the soil temperature at your local zone yourself and then prepare this chart. This hard work is perhaps very important and saves your time and might yield the best results in future. So, based on the soil temperature charts for different vegetables, my season-wise or month-wise planting calendar is like this. I will show you how to use the temperature chart for various vegetables to build this calendar in a short while from now. So, my spring season vegetables are: summer season vegetables include, then rainy season vegetables include, winter season crops include. You can download this PDF file with the temperature charts for various vegetables from a link in description below and build your own zonal garden calendar for perfect vegetable gardening. Let's start. What is a seed ball? A seed ball, also known as a seed bomb, earth ball, clay dumpings, and so on. It's actually an ancient technique to keep the seeds safe until conditions are favorable for germination. And also they are a very convenient seed dispersal mechanism to plant trees everywhere, that is called guerrilla gardening. Usually they're thrown alongside the road soil to grow trees for greenery and protect our Mother Earth. Now, what is the composition of a seed ball? A seed ball is usually a mixture of clay and compost and then dried, of course with a seed pre-planted into it. Cotton fibers are sometimes mixed into the clay to make it more strong, especially when you're throwing them harshly. How many seeds to be included in one seed ball? Generally, 1 or 2 seeds are sufficient. The second seed is just a backup if in case the first seed fails to germinate. On the other hand, a seed bomb contains many seeds for dispersal, but adding too many seeds into one seed ball may result in overcrowding and failure to thrive, and the resulting plants may not perform well. Sometimes these seed bombs are used for aerial reforestation techniques. Now, what is the size of a seed ball? Nothing fixed, but generally they can be anywhere between 10 mm to 80 mm depending on the size and the number of seeds. Now coming to DIY seed balls. Yes, you can make your own DIY seed balls or seed bombs. It's a great fun activity for kids. They'll really enjoy it, especially on a Sunday in a park or a picnic. You can also explain them the importance of trees and oxygen, plus the environmental and the health benefits of gardening. Just carry some clay soil from the garden mixed with some vermicompost and of course some seeds. Any seeds will do. If you have any special seeds of some larger trees, that's really good. Take this mixture of soil and compost in your hand and sprinkle some water and roll it into a ball. Or what you can do is carefully add some water to the whole container and make it like a dough and then roll it into a ball, and then insert a seed into this by making a depression and then roll it back into a ball. Optionally, you can wrap a thin layer of toilet paper and keep it for drying. These are some ready-made seed balls available online. These are especially for larger trees. Make sure you do not throw these on some useful farming or agricultural lands. Choose a right spot where you think a tree is required, like for example alongside the road where there are not enough trees, or on a large open no man's land, or even a playground, especially around the boundaries if there are no trees around. Now, what is the right time or the season to use these seed balls? Though best time is early spring, you can disperse them in any season including winter season. Better avoid in hot summer.
Step 1. Take some good quality coriander seeds, preferably the sealed packets from a grocery store. Then step 2. Take 2 containers, something like these, and make sure you make drainage holes at the bottom of both these containers. We are using this yellow one to grow the whole coriander seeds without splitting them, whereas the green container will use it to plant the split seeds and then show you the result of this experiment in the end. Please do not skip step 4 and 5, they are really important. Then step 3, the potting mix. Our potting mix for both these containers is identical and contains coco peat 60 to 70% and vermicompost 30 to 40%. Then step 4, seed split method. Each coriander is technically a fruit containing 2 seeds in it. As you can see, there are 2 halves, each having 1 seed, and each of them will grow into an independent coriander plant. Let's first look into the conventional method of splitting these seeds. Better, it's called the scarification of seeds. Most of you might have used this hard and heavy rollers to crush these seeds. Some even use footwear or even shoes to crush them. This is not the ideal method to do this, because during the process of rolling or hitting, it can damage the seeds. So the correct way to scarify these seeds is using the sandpaper method. Pour small quantity of seeds at a time on a sandpaper base and then take another smaller piece of sandpaper to scrub these seeds gently without exerting too much force. Gently scrape through and the job is done. Then step 5. Now you can optionally soak these seeds in water for about 1 to 2 hours for much faster germination. But this is optional. You can even sow the seeds directly without soaking. Step 6. We are sowing the seeds in both these containers on the same day. Make sure you evenly space the seeds and cover them with a thin layer of potting mix. Then step 7. Now water these containers thoroughly. Coriander loves to grow in good moisture and hence daily watering is necessary. Now let's look into the results of this experiment. You can see clearly that the container with split seeds using our sandpaper method shows enormous growth and loads of coriander plants. Let's look into the 3 nursery secrets on how to grow adeniums from seeds. First thing you need to do when you notice an adenium seed pod is tie some thread around the pod to prevent spillage of seeds before the seed pod matures and releases the seeds. It has a special seed dispersal mechanism by wind, where each seed has this fluffy stuff which is easily carried away by the wind. Here you can see I have protected the seed pod from its natural dispersal mechanism. When the seed pod starts drying and cracks open, it is the time to harvest the seeds. Separate the seeds by gently pulling this fluffy stuff as shown in this clip. So these are fresh adenium seeds we just harvested. Now the first secret to get us great success in germination. These seeds are very delicate and are more prone to fungus. So what you need to do immediately is pour in some antifungal powder like Viability or any antifungal powder like carbendazim plus mancozeb combination like the SAF brand powder. Coat the seeds with this antifungal powder, whether you're keeping them aside for storage or plan to sow them immediately. Now the second nursery secret, the growing medium. You can use either pure sand or some cocoa peat mixed with it. What they actually do is take fine sand and sterilize it by keeping full sunlight for at least 2 to 3 days. Or if you're growing in a small scale, you can even microwave this sand. I think if you're using this antifungal powder, this step is perhaps optional. Now the third secret and then finally the results of this process on day 6, day 10, day 12 and day 15. And one more thing, you also mix some antifungal powder into the sand or cocoa peat or whatever medium you're using. And while sowing the seeds, try to maintain at least a gap of an inch to avoid overcrowding. You can do this much better. Here, not done this perfectly. Then finally, you also mix some antifungal into the water or spray can and use the same solution to gently spray or gently sprinkle some water once every 2 days. Do not flood the seeds with water. This can damage the seeds. Now, the time for results. You can see on day 6, there is some activity. The little ones are trying to push up the sand. On day 10, some more activity. You can see little babies popping out more and see this little baby adenium in the zoomed view. On day 12, more improvement and formation of these tiny babies. Then on day 15, you can see so many beautiful baby adeniums popping out. Now, these beautiful little adenium seedlings are about 2 months old, and this is the best time to repot them into independent containers.
Having a beautiful, lush green lawn is every gardener's dream. It really makes your home and garden landscape look beautiful. We would all like to have that best looking perfect lawn, but it's not always easy to achieve. At number 1, type of lawn grass seeds. This is the first important step where most inexperienced gardeners and homeowners get deceived while purchasing grass seeds. There are many different grass species which thrive in different climates. Like there are cool season grasses which grow best when temperatures are 60 to 75 degree Fahrenheit, and warm season grasses which thrive from late spring through summer. You can check the packet instructions and labels for this info. Well, some of the common grass types to mention are Bermuda grass or doob grass, buffalo grass, bend grass, ryegrass, and so on. In this context, I would like to highlight you this important lawn grass seed scam mostly going on online, even at big websites like Amazon. Some sellers list it out as Bermuda grass, and the seeds you receive are some millet seeds like foxtail millet seeds or the cattle fodder grass seeds, which are actually very cheap. These type of seeds are usually fed as budgie food grains, but they are selling it as Bermuda grass seeds. You must know how to identify the proper seeds before planting and avoid these type of scams. These are mostly non-returnable items, and also Amazon does not publish negative reviews when we try reporting these fake items. We'll grow these fake seeds in one container and the genuine Bermuda grass seeds in another container, as well as over the lawn area, and then show you the results in the end. At number 2, preparing the ground and soil. This is very important step, and you should know that the tender roots of young grass plants will not grow well in compacted soils. Choose the location you want to grow lawn grass, whether it's your front patio or your backyard. Optionally, you may also have to level the ground surface by adding some loose soil over the lawn area days before planting your lawn grass. Well, firstly, loosen the top 2 to 3 inches of the soil. If it's a small area, you can use a hand cultivator, or if it's a large area, you can dig with a shovel or hoe. After digging, you need to rake it smooth to break up any soil clods and rake the soil out into fine particles. Then you need to water the area thoroughly before planting seeds because damp soil encourages speedy germination and provides immediate moisture to the emerging roots. At number 3, planting the grass seeds. For home gardens, you can just use your hand to distribute the seeds, flinging it out over the area. Spread them out evenly over the soil surface, neither too crowded nor too sparse. At number 4, covering the seeds. After the seeds are sown, covering them is very much important to protect them from birds and also preventing them from washing away in a heavy rain. You can just use plain soil to cover the grass seeds after planting. But the best thing to do is to use a mixture of soil and a water-retaining stuff like coco peat or peat moss to cover them. Like 50% soil and 50% coco peat, and optionally compost like decomposed cow dung or vermicompost. You can mix all 3 in equal proportions or add at least some 20% compost. Cover the seeds evenly with this soil peat mix to about 1/4 inch but never more than 1/2 inch. At number 5, watering. This is most important step for germination. Keep the top layer of the soil moist but not soggy. Too much water is as bad as too little, and avoid vigorous watering with a hose and stuff like that as this could wash the seeds away. A misting or shower attachment on your watering hose can cut down on the amount of force you use. Till germination, water at least once a day early in the morning, and depending on the climate, again in the afternoon if the sun and the wind have dried out the soil. But once the grass seeds germinate and begin to grow, reduce the frequency of irrigation but water more deeply. Once your new grass is about 2 inches tall, reduce your watering schedule to twice or thrice a week depending on the climate, but water until the ground is wet down to a depth of about 3 inches. At number 6, germination. We'll show you the results of seeds grown in containers as well, including the fake Bermuda grass or the fodder grass seeds. Germination should begin within a week depending on the type of grass seeds. In my case, you can see germination has happened within 3 days. On the 3rd day, you can see these cute tiny grass seedlings popping out. You can check the results in these containers as well. Now on day 5, this one is the result for genuine Bermuda grass, and this one is the fake Bermuda grass seeds. Just look at the grass blades and spot the difference. The fake fodder grass has wider leaves. Then you can see the results after 1 week in containers and the ground. The whole area should appear green in about 2 weeks' time.